Hi, thanks for joining me on this episode of Conversations with Caleb Lee. Today I have the honor of introducing to you Ben Arnoux. Ben has a pretty fabulous life. 4 beautiful children, a bus parked outside of his home that he's turning into an RV, and a solid job as your postman. I wish I could capture how much fun I had before and after the interview. To meet such an honest, sincere gentleman and family reminds you of all the amazing people you may never meet. Ben shares his personal experiences being raised by a single mother and how that has shaped who he is today. He also shares on how he's fought stuttering for over 30 years and how he's overcome it. I want to thank Ben for opening up and being willing to share his thoughts on his job, the US Postal Service, and intimate stories of his personal life and worldviews. Thanks for joining me and enjoy this episode of Conversations with Caleb Lee. Ben, thanks so much for inviting me into your home like this. I want to start with the format that I have right now, which is where we start with your professional life, and then we're going to transition into your personal life, type all back together. Okay. So in, I guess, the short introductions that people ask, like the 30 second, what do you do in 30 seconds?
Okay, 30 seconds? Okay. Well, by day, I'm a letter carrier for the Postal Service. I've been doing that 13 years. And I work out of Manhasset, Long Island.
13 years?
13 years.
So how old are you when you started?
I think I was about to turn 26.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to dive right in. From 22 to 26, what were you doing during that time?
22 to 26?
Yeah.
Oh, I was learning how to be a dad, because we had our first, 22. We had our first child when I was 24, so we had just gotten married.
Was that planned? Did you want to have a kid as soon as possible?
We wanted to start a family, yeah.
Gotcha.
We just, it seemed right,
Yeah.
We're married now, let's just start a family,
I feel like that's, depending on where you kind of, maybe it's not so geographical, but generally in urban New York, I feel like people delay having kids. So it's interesting how, were you in New York at the time?
Yeah, I was always in New York.
Okay, gotcha.
Always out here.
Cool, man. So you're Postal Service for 12 years now. We're going to go back to you getting married early and having kids early. I would love to hear more about that, just personally. So why Postal Service? Why USPS?
Oh, my father-in-law told me that they were hiring. Prior to that, I was working in a nursing home in the kitchen, and it didn't seem like there was any where to go. So, and then he told me that they were hiring, took the test, didn't think much of it, and they told me that, you're right. So I took the test and everything, and interviews, and boom, I'm a mailman.
How was that test?
What
did they ask?
It's a lot of short memory questions, you look at addresses and things are like slightly off, and then they'll take it away, and you kind of have to remember it. So I used to tell myself I had photographic memory. Guess I did, because I was like, boom, I think I scored like a 90, so that was great,
Wow, awesome. Yeah. So that served you very well.
Yeah.
Do you really have photographic memory?
I don't know.
I would
like to think I did, because I saw my doctor the other day, and just by looking at his name tag, I was like, I know where you live. And he was like, what? I was like, okay, that got awkward real quick. So then I said, yeah. So, I just saw his name. I saw his name, apartment number, and that was that. Kind of freaked him out a little bit. So,
dude, that would freak anyone out.
Yeah, so I'm going to stop doing that.
No. But I think what's also freak is how good your memory is if you recognize a name.
Yeah.
Just because you see thousands of names, man. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Cool, man. All right, so we're going to move on from that awkward that you know where your doctor lives. So what does your daily schedule look like? Tell me, what time do you wake up, and just walk me through it real quick.
It varies. Right now, I'm waking up around 5:30 in the morning.
That's early.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I get ready. My wife is usually up before me. She's a soldier, man. So she gets up, and then I get up. I try to get dressed up. I've been lately leaving to work with my uniform on, so I already know what I'm getting on. I might as well sleep in it, you know. And then so that's the time I get up. I have to be to work by, well, right now it's 6:30, but usually it's 7:30. So I drive over there in autopilot, mind you, and then I get to work. And you want to know like what happens after that, or?
Yeah. So do you sort mail? What does that look like?
Yeah, the mail doesn't come sorted. I mean, we get those little square tubs. Yeah. And then we kind of have to sort, you know, because every address is a slot.
Yeah.
In the shelf, and we're doing that for like about an hour or two, and then there's also mail that's sorted, and somehow we collate all that and put it all together, so that we look like we know what we're doing on the street.
When you're out there,
like the Merry Mailman. No, it's usually a mess. So
gotcha.
We make sense of it all.
That's a lot more work, because in my mind it just, you know, and the average person just shows up.
Yeah.
You just get your mail. You don't think much about it. He has that bag. He has his mail in there, and everything's sorted. And in my mind, it's like, well, yeah, it comes like in that bag, and it comes sorted. But I guess not.
No.
So, what time do you usually end your day?
It's supposed to be 4, but you know, there's a lot of overtime, so it's been like sometimes 5:36.
Okay.
So,
gotcha.
It can be long.
And if you work for the USPS for, let's say, like you for 12 years. Does the pay get better and better as you go, or does it cap out? How does that work?
Yeah, I think I'm almost at top pay.
Okay.
Almost at top pay. Because I know when I started, you know, it was a certain rate, and yeah.
What are some of the biggest challenges? Now, I'm glad you're 12 years in, because that means you're a veteran. So you've seen it all.
It's 13 years in.
Nice, there we go.
It's me. Yeah.
Yeah, so 13 years in, what have been some of the biggest challenges for you?
Challenges are, see, I'm naturally an introvert. So now I'm going to people's houses. I mean, it's kind of a good dose because I'm there and then I'm gone, you know?
Yeah.
So that kind of helps out. So I get these little like bursts of like, okay, speaking to a person, and then I get to move. So I'm constantly learning how to better interact. So I think that's what's been one of the biggest challenges.
Okay. Personally, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that, and just dealing with like, I mean, it ties in with dealing with people, but like on you know, with my beliefs, you know, and because it's like the work environment is almost like an amphitheater, almost like a gladiator type setting, you know.
No way.
So yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Like, you know, you don't want, like, you try to be gracious when people are saying things that you might not agree with or whatever, and you know. You mean
the people you're delivering to, or people you work with?
Like people who I work with, you know. Like they're all, you know, they're a great group of people, but sometimes you don't want to always hear what they're talking about, and sometimes the topics can vary. And I'm kind of like, guys, it's so early in the morning, you know. And sometimes, you know, and emotions rise, and you know, and again, pride can easily kick in, you know, when you don't want to look like they got you on the workroom floor in front of everyone, because then everybody's like, oh.
I see.
And then it's like, you want to fire back, and it's tough. You want to, like, be the bigger person, whatever that is anymore sometimes.
No, well, I mean, the bigger person definitely is not jousting back, especially if it's out of emotions, right?
Right.
That's interesting, because when you talk about culture like that, it makes me think a lot about the stereotype of, let's say, construction workers. Is it anything along those lines? Is that kind of what you're referring to? That culture of just talking about maybe sailor's language and just, is it like that?
It can get like that. It can, yeah, because, you know, because everyone feels as though they're so comfortable with each other. They've all worked together, and everyone can take it, you know. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. Let's move on from that. This is kind of a more broad, general question. Fun fact, as I was looking up the USPS, the president actually appoints. There's like a master postman or something along those lines.
Yeah.
And do you know anything about that?
We have a postmaster general.
Yes.
Yeah.
How does that work?
I don't know what her name is. I always forget. I'm like, we get these like, I don't even know how that works.
Yeah.
But I'm like, what does she do? Like,
right.
What does a postmaster general do? Like, you know, like you've seen Seinfeld or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
I bring that up because let's say you were postmaster general.
Yeah.
What would you change about the USPS. If you could like open the can of worms.
I'll keep it short, Well, I mean, on the more superficial cosmetic level, the uniforms, man. Come on. I would rather wear brown like UPS, At least they got us in these like with a little stripe on the side, and the shirt doesn't match, and the shirts are so stain happy.
The light blue one?
It turns green, and you will never get those stains out, man. It doesn't matter. You're better off just buying a new shirt. Just buy a new shirt and be done with it. Buy 18 shirts like Batman in the closet.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but yeah, it's like that. You just want to appear a certain way. You want to be presentable when you're out there. And it makes it hard. Because you look dirty. It needs a clean shirt.
What if this? I just thought of this right now.
Mm-hmm.
So there's clearly things you have to abide by when it comes to uniform. Does it matter where you buy those uniforms?
Yeah, like they give us these little catalogs, and we can order from it.
You have to order from that catalog?
You can, but there are various catalogs, and sometimes uniform stores will send a representative to our station, and they'll show us their catalog, and we'll order from there.
What if there's someone who's very fashion savvy, who can make a really gorgeous uniform, same colors, made in the USA? Mm-hmm. Would that be a potential business opportunity for someone?
Yeah, I mean, there are people who have done it. They've designed their own USPS sneakers. I mean,
I don't know about sneakers, but nice slim-fitting.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Okay, well, yeah, might as well since we're over here. What I did once, I found this like nice Calvin Klein like jacket. It was very form-fitting and sleek.
Yeah.
And I had the postal patches.
Yeah.
And iron on it, and I put it across.
And it worked.
Oh, they loved it.
You can do that.
I mean, you're not really supposed to, but they were like, where'd you get that? Like they loved it.
Okay.
I mean, people were just complimenting.
Yeah.
And then when, it depends on which manager comes in and they're like, that's not postal approved, but it's nice. So they can't. So, but yeah.
Outside of that, what else would you change if you were the Postmaster General?
Change? Let me see. Wow. What did I change? I guess I would like for them to be more, I guess, a little bit more understanding of what, of what it takes to do what we have to do. We're sometimes seen as robots. Like, we don't get tired. We don't get sick. And I do understand that there are people who abuse the system, but like the things that they will come after you for, I think that's...
Give me an example.
Like, let's say, like I know of a gentleman who he called in sick to go to a doctor's appointment, comes back from the doctor's appointment with a note, and they were trying to write him up. Like I don't know if it was because of a pattern of absences, things like that. But I'm like, it's this job isn't easy. Like we make it look easy, but it takes toll on you. It really does. Or just having that understanding.
Gotcha. So, yeah, because I feel like a lot of times it's because of the people who are taking advantage that they have to put kind of stringent measures on, I guess, being reported on, things like that. But interesting. Good to know. I feel like that's been a theme for a lot of industries where it's 2018, turning 19, and every industry you go to, it's getting harder. Everyone's working longer hours, both physically and mentally, emotionally. A lot of things are just getting more and more tasking or emotionally. I'm going to switch gears, and I want to go into a little bit on your personal life and 2 projects that you're working on. And I don't know if projects is the right term, but I know for one of them it is. You have a huge yellow bus sitting outside your home right now.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Okay. Well, yeah. Now, my wife and I are, how opposites attract. So she's very calculated and very careful and safe. She likes to plan things out. She likes to see things run smoothly. My wife is ready, aim, fire. I'm aim, fire, ready. So I got myself into a lot of trouble, like buying motorcycles and cars and this and that. And she was always very safe and just trying to make it work, make all the pieces still work. She's always calibrating and recalibrating, just to keep things running. And then one day, she won't admit to this. She says it's not a major factor, but I think because she not too long ago had a biopsy, and I guess because she lost her mother when her mother was 42 or 44.
That's really young.
So it was a stage 4 breast cancer. Okay. So, and I don't know if I got her a little spooked, but she's always played it so safe, and and I think she wanted to be a little adventurous because now she's like, okay, all right, Ben, I want to get a bus and we're going to convert it into an RV and we're going to take road trips.
That's awesome.
And I was like, what? You know how much I hate driving? Yes, dear. Okay, we'll do it. And I mean, because for her to say that, I think it took a lot, because for her to come out there and say, you know what, let's get a bus and take road trips. I'm like, you never talk like that. So I said, you know what? Yeah, we're getting a bus. So we went and got one.
I'm sorry to cut you off. Why not just buy a used RV?
That's the thing. This is Ruby. Again, this is one of the things that I love about her is that she'd rather make it.
Okay.
And it's kind of a fun thing that we can all get involved in.
Yeah.
So she, like a lot of things that I want to get, or, like whether it's equipment or something or a prop, and she'll say, why can't we just make it? And she'll proceed to go on and find it. Here's a tutorial on how to make it. I'm like, come on. Can I just buy it? She's like, come on, man. Let's make it. So
give me an example of something that she wants to just make.
Oh, man. You know what? She has this thing. What she'll do is we'll go to a restaurant, right? She'll eat the food. And she's dissecting it. Okay. And we never get to go there again because she figures out the recipe and she will come home and replicate it. And I can't even be mad because it's just as good. So I'm
Absolutely,
like, great.
Man.
I'm like... So,
why would anyone be mad at that?
No, I can't be.
You can't be. I can't.
It's cute because she's like, and we never get to go back there again.
Gotcha.
That's
a skill.
Yeah.
You have to be like a detective chef to be able to do that. To be able to taste what you're eating and to replicate that. That's a tremendous skill.
Yeah.
So you are blessed, my man.
Yes, because I can't cook. So
okay.
When Mom is out of commission and then she's like, Daddy,
oh man,
make breakfast for the kids. The look of horror that comes over the kids' faces. They're like, no, maybe we'll have cookies for breakfast.
Just so the audience, how many kids you have right now?
We have 4.
And you are how old?
38.
And you started at 24.
24, yeah.
Okay.
About 24, yeah.
I guess this is where I go into, well, not yet. We still have this whole side of you that of photography and videography. Where did that start? And where are you at right now with that? And what do you want to do down the road with it?
Okay, well, I started off, as an artist. I always drew. I mean, when I was old enough to pick up a pencil, I was always drawing. And I don't know, I guess I always saw things cinematically. When I played with my toys, my action figures, I had to play alone because I was setting things up. I had the musical score in my head, and no one was allowed to play with me because they would just mess it up. But I couldn't articulate that. So I would just hide and play with my toys, and I'm humming the songs. And yeah, but I didn't do anything video related at all or film related. And Ruby wanted to pursue photography. And we started it off, and then I was like, I want a camera too. And then I started, and I dove into it much more than she did, and then it started to morph again back towards video once this whole and then that's where I am now.
You undermined a lot because, in my opinion, you've recently done a few projects that you've been paid for, and I feel like those. I don't know how did you get those, and how did you get those jobs?
Well, recently because I'm a letter carrier, I find it's very disarming, I guess, when I go into an establishment.
Absolutely.
Because what I've been really trying to do is build relationships with people. Because yeah, I mean, I can make you a pretty image and you'll pay me, but can we have a cup of coffee at the end of the day or just hang out? You know, I think that's cool. So I would go in like this one shop of 4 or 5 coffee roasters. I went in there and I just bought a cup of coffee, left, and then I went in a second time, bought a cup of coffee, struck up conversation, and the manager and I just kind of hit it off. It was cool, and you know, and this is, I think, when it was really beginning to start. I was like, just, you know, like there's this voice in my head saying, "Do it, just do it. You keep talking about it, just do it." And I started talking with the guy about, you know, like these little biofilms documentary that I make for my kids, and I showed it to him, and he was like, "This is cool." And then I was like, "Now, Ben, do it now." And I said, "Would you like a video?" I was like, and then, you know, and then he was like, "Sure." And I was like, so the first one, I didn't charge them. And I went, and I came in, and then he wasn't supposed to say yes, you know.
Because he's just a manager. He's not corporate, I guess, right?
Not even that, but you're prepared for rejection or failure, but you're not ready for what if they say yes.
Sure.
You know? Meanwhile, a year and a half prior, I'm on YouTube University learning about film and video and all this other stuff, and pouring hours and hours. And then he says yes, and I'm like, oh boy. Okay, so I guess I'll see you. He was like, "How's tomorrow?" I'm like, whoa, okay. So I kind of put it off, you know, self-sabotage, and then I eventually came in. I filmed. I didn't know what I was going to film, but I did know that I wanted the viewer to feel something. So I wanted to just capture the vibe of that shop. And I went in.
I saw that clip, and it's amazing.
Thanks.
So you clearly have the skill in you to be able to see things a certain way and capture it. So that's. But what's more, I guess, fascinating is the whole process of you actually asking, because being rejected, and you said you're an introvert before, and the whole process of mentally preparing yourself to be rejected, that's tough, man. That's really tough.
Yeah. There was this YouTuber who talked about summoning 20 seconds of courage, right?
Nice.
And I was like, no, and then I'll try it, you know, and then, yeah. I mean, because you can just, for those 20 seconds, you be fearless. Be fearless, and after those 20 seconds, you can run and hide again, you know? And I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And I just walked in, and not that I was pretending not to be me, but just be somebody else, like Batman. And you just go in there, and you say what you're going to say. And it was crazy.
That's awesome.
And he was like, and after that, it's like I left the place just like, oh man, he said yes, you know. And then I delivered mail after that. So
you took your mask off, right? You went back to your day job.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Cool, man. Thanks for sharing. So, where do you want to take this? Is this something you want to grow into?
That's the thing. I don't know where it's going to grow because I like making, or I want to get into making short stories, like short films. Like I'm thinking of like a lot of things, like reenacting scenes from the Bible, but in modern day. You know,
that would be cool.
So we'd be, you know, like I'm not sure if you saw the old. It was a version of Romeo and Juliet, but it was in like modern day, but they were speaking in Old English.
Huh.
But it was an interesting. My wife loves that movie.
Do you remember what it's called?
It was just Romeo and Juliet.
Romeo and Juliet?
I think it had Leonardo DiCaprio and John Leguizamo.
I think I know which one you're talking about.
It was
with
really
Leonardo,
like, So I mean, I want to do things like that and see where that goes. And we buy props from like Dollar Tree or the thrift store, and we just put on silly masks and things and just bug out in front of the camera and just see where it takes us. I don't know, but I don't know. I mean, it could turn into like a video production team eventually, and I like doing this with like my kids. They get involved as well, you know, and yeah.
That's awesome. And I want to encourage you to push for it. And just like you are now, you know, you have your day job, and then when you have time, the evenings or the weekends or vacation times, to really pursue it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess you even doing this interview is in a way doing something on the creative side. So
Yeah.
yeah, I really appreciate that, by the way.
Yeah. Glad to have you, man.
Yeah. I want to ask about, you mentioned over the phone yesterday a few personal, I guess, experiences that you've had. First is your upbringing.
Yeah.
And for anyone listening, that's just a boiler, so if you can ignore that humming in the background if you can hear it. But your personal experiences, two in particular. First is, you said your mother, and correct me if I'm wrong, your mother raised you as a single mother until 10, and then you had a stepfather who moved in, right?
Yeah.
How do you think that experience for you shaped who you are today?
It shaped me. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, growing up only seeing her, like, I didn't know that I needed a dad around, but you see it all the time on, television and cartoons everywhere. So you kind of like figure like something's wrong, but I can't articulate what it is. So how it shaped me, I mean, I watched her go through a lot. I watched her, be strong a lot, but I guess in retrospect, I realized that, and I watched her do a lot. She always did what she had to do, and it's not that she told me that that's what I must do when I grow up, but I watched her do it, and you just kind of follow suit, just by her example. I mean, by the time she remarried, I was 10. I'm practically my own man. So who is this guy coming in? And I got to call you dad? It was...
Was he a good father figure?
He was, but he came with his own life experiences. So it wasn't always peachy. And I guess he was working through his own stuff.
Sure.
So there was friction at times, and there were times when I was like, I'm going to... When this guy goes to sleep, man.
Oh my gosh.
Because I guess a lot of things, because again, I never had a dad around, so there were times when he believed he was toughening me up. But I'm like, you don't know me,
Yeah.
But he meant well. He really did, but you see it in retrospect,
Gotcha.
And I guess we were raised with Christian beliefs, and I don't suppose that he was. So we are growing up one way, and he comes in with this.
Yeah.
It kind of shakes up everything.
Sure.
So there was always like a power struggle, almost like
What do you mean by that?
Mom doesn't want us to do this or that, and he's like, oh, come on, let him do it.
I see.
It was a lot of that. And sometimes she would just try to compromise to make it work, and we saw all this happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's kind of weird.
Yeah.
To watch. So now we can do it. Great, So
Interesting.
yeah, it's a.
I can see though, during the first 10 years of your life, how you develop that mentality of just you got to figure it out. You got to go do it.
Yeah.
In the same way your mom did.
Yeah.
You did bring something else up, and if it's still relevant, or maybe I misunderstood. Correct me if I'm wrong. Something along the lines of not. Looking for mentors, or not, I guess, giving credit where it's due in terms of an older man having experience. And if you can clarify that a little bit.
Yeah, because, I grew up with my mom in the home and my grandmother. So we all lived in the same house. Now, I'm the oldest of 4. So,
You
it
too,
was...
you're the oldest.
I'm the oldest of 4, as she was also the oldest of 4. So...
Interesting.
There weren't really many male figures in the home, So I was always going to her for questions or guidance or whatever, or my grandmother. I had uncles, but it's not someone. But you kind of knew they were uncles. Like you can, get little nuggets from them from time to time. But I kind of knew that it wasn't dad, So you kind of said, well, fine then. And I don't know, but as I progressed throughout life, I found that I wasn't really seeking male leadership, or just from older men. Like I would get along, and and everyone around me, was doing that, but I couldn't quite do it. And I didn't even realize I was doing it till I was like, maybe like 35. Then it dawned on me. I was like, I don't really like, it was, yeah.
So what about now? How do you feel about it now?
I think now, since I'm more aware of it, I've been actively,
Gotcha.
trying to change that, and yeah.
Gotcha. It's interesting because I guess this is where we can transition into your kids, because I'm sure you feel a sense of, I don't know how to put it into words, but when your kids come to you for advice, when your kids come to you for direction, it must be a good feeling to be able to say, my son, my daughter, I've experienced this, and this is what I can teach you. You wouldn't say it like those words, but and in the same way, you can kind of access that, right, with other, I guess, older gentlemen in the church or people around you who you respect. So I'm sure having kids has changed your view on that, has it? Yeah,
because my stepdad, I loved him, but I was afraid of him. Like sometimes he'd be very explosive, and when you're kind of a kid, you're kind of like, I don't want my kids to view me that way. I want them to want to come to me, like they want to come, and ask me questions. So, I mean, I don't want to make it seem like he was this horrible person, things got much better, as I grew and everything, but when you're a kid, you don't understand. But with my kids, it feels great when they come and ask me things. And I guess it's all stemming back to my childhood, how I didn't want my kids to view. Again, I knew I wasn't going to be like best friends with them. They're not going to like everything I say. Sometimes I'm going to say no when you want to do something. So, but I did want them to feel free, to come and talk to me and not feel like I'm going to snap at them because I've had a long day, because they remember that stuff,
Absolutely.
I know I did,
And I guess I just want to encourage you, like, I know you're already working on that, but in the same way, I'm sure there's so much we can learn from people older than us. And even if we don't necessarily respect them, I feel like it's kind of like reading a book where you have this person who's spent thousands of hours writing a book, and you can access all of that in just a matter of a couple hours, right? So just for self-improvement, I feel like it's a good word of encouragement. I hope other people who might, I'm sure there are plenty of people who feel the way you do too. I want to ask you about, you also mentioned your stuttering problem that you had growing up. I would love to hear about how tell me about what it was like before, when the transition started happening, or when it happened, and how you would advise someone to make that transition to where you are now.
Right. As far back as I could remember, I had a stutter, right? And it was tough to talk, so I was always seen as the quiet kid in class, and
how bad was it in school?
I would say, I don't know, like I managed to duck questions, to duck teachers. I would like shift throughout the class like that, so that you didn't. Yeah, I had to, because I would say one of the worst times was when my dad was asking me something and I was trying to get out the word "the," and it took like over 15 seconds. Like I was like, and if you feel like you're holding your breath because you're trying so hard to get the word out and you don't understand why, how
old are you?
10.
Okay.
So again, I have a new dad, and we're kind of not getting off on the right. I'm like, I've been stuttering long before you got here, man. You better get used to this, But yeah, and I guess it I'm not sure if it stemmed from me always being excited, or I would always feel as though I was not being heard. So it was almost a fight to be heard. So I would try to speak faster to quote unquote get to the good part. And that would make the stuttering worse. It would make it worse because I was trying to keep their attention. And that's when I learned to just read body language. The slightest bit of of disinterest, I would go into it and it would start, and that would in turn make it worse. because now I can't get any words out, you know.
When did you realize this was going on?
I would say,
that process.
Looking back, in my 30s. So I go through my whole life.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so I pretty much go through like most of my, my life, just not realizing what was going on, what was behind it when I was doing it.
Were there times, let's say in your 20s and your 30s, where it would take you 10, 15, 20 seconds to say something?
I would...
or not, was not that bad?
I think it tapered off some.
Okay.
I was starting to get more confidence,
okay.
But it would still happen from time to time. Or it would come out with people who I was really, really, really comfortable with. Like my wife.
Really? Because it would come out with your wife?
Like I would totally put my guard down with her. And I would, because for me, it was almost like I made it mental. It's like I would try to, monitor it.
Yeah.
When I'm on the outside.
Yeah.
When I'm on the inside, whatever.
Yeah, I got you.
It may take me a long time to get the words, but you're going to sit here and listen to it, It was like that, Yeah.
Yeah. That's fascinating. So what you're saying is if you really focus on the words you're saying, you're able to mitigate it a little bit.
And it was more than just focusing on it because, again, I always felt like people didn't want to hear me. So I would try to rush through it to get to the good parts. So what I started doing it's like one day I realized that, what I have to say is important. It doesn't matter if they don't want to hear me. If you know that what you have to say is from your heart, you mean what you're about to say, slow down, say what you have to say. And I tell you, once I started doing that, it changed everything, because now I would just speak, and because I had to keep reminding myself. So imagine going through like your whole life not thinking that way, and then so I would just remind myself that what I have to say is important. Slow down, say what you have to say. If they walk away, okay,
well, too bad for them.
They walk away.
Yeah.
But don't let it control you. And I don't know if that would work for everyone, but I do think that I think people go through lots of experiences in their childhood that could can mess with them in their adulthood.
Yeah.
And I think that they may feel like they're less than. And whether you stutter or not, like if you can see your value, you're not an accident, you're here for a reason, so don't act like you're just some speck. Not to walk around being self-righteous, I'm better than everyone, but every life is valuable. You're important. I mean, you're gonna come across people who make you feel like you're nothing, but you just don't buy into that.
So from what I'm hearing, a lot of it is psychological, the narrative going on in your mind. And do you think a lot of people who stutter can relate with that?
I can't speak for them.
True.
In fact,
true.
there's a gentleman who I deliver mail to. He stutters, and he's quite comfortable with it.
He is.
He told me that I shouldn't have to mentally, monitor what's going on. So I was like, okay, well,
to each their own.
Yeah. Gotcha. And his stutter was worse than mine.
Okay.
And I found that fascinating, because I was so self-conscious,
Right.
And growing up, kids are mean. So they'll find ways. So that's why all throughout high school, in fact, how I masked it, I would tell them, because I grew up in the 80s and early 90s, I told them I was rapping. I was, and they believed it. Yo, Ben, rap. I'm like, nah. And it was, but that's what I had to do because it was rough. It was rough,
Man. What do you think? How much have you thought about where that idea that you've believed for so long that what you had to say didn't matter? Where do you think that stemmed from?
I would say from sometimes from my birth father, I kind of wondered why he didn't stick around. What was so bad that you just couldn't stick around, Like I heard stories, like I may hear it from my mom or from my grandmother or from whatever, but what's your story, And And we got to talking one time, and I was like, what was up? And I guess it was troubling that his story was so lame.
I see.
I mean, he was a kid. I get it. He was like around like, what, 19, 20? Okay. But like, you didn't want me? Like what was, like, what's the reason? So I didn't feel important, you know?
I see.
So, and it just, you don't realize that, you know, but you're living that out, you know? You feel like, wow, like, you know, like you don't feel like you're worth anything in that sense. You do and you don't, you know, like my mom tried to provide a lot of love, you know, and then my grandmother and then my uncles. And even when she remarried, you know, my stepdad, you know, like he tried to, like, you know, really get us into things and sports and, like, you know, other activities. But, you know, but deep down, you kind of feel like, man.
And how many guys grow up without fathers? Yeah, so it's, you know, to meet you and for you to share with me, that's how it affected you as a child. And knowing millions of other guys, gals, don't have their fathers around and how they're digesting it. I would say it must be on a very similar level of a hurt, of an experience. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. I hope someone who has experienced what you've experienced can hear you now at 38, at this point in your life, and realize that you can look back and you can identify certain things and you can, in a sense, I want to say overcome, because
you can.
You're stuttering.
You
Yeah, I hear maybe like just tail hints of it.
Yeah.
But nothing of what you've been explaining of what it was like growing up.
Yeah, it was, I mean, and to speak to what you were saying before, I mean, it made me a better dad, you know, in a weird way, not having that around, but at least having my stepdad around, you know, I learned a lot of things by watching him, you know, like, you know, just to show love to your kids, you know, try to listen to them, have fun with them, laugh with them, be, like, he would be very, like, loose or just,
carefree,
you know, carefree in a good way. You know, like he didn't always look like he had it all together, you know, like he would let himself go so we could see, oh, you are a person, okay, you are a human, you know, and I was able to, like, take those things, you know, and rock it, you know, and I mean, I'm still learning, you know, as I mean, kids throw you curveballs, man, and, but yeah, but I mean, you know, I mean, we all grow up with different circumstances, but, you know, it doesn't mean that I mean, there is hope.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You know, like you take that and you take what you didn't like, you know, things that are, you know, from your childhood and you just don't do that.
Yeah.
Because you remember how it felt, you know?
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right. So in my mind, I have 3 more things I want to ask. I'm going to say the last 2 for, if you've seen the other videos I do, I have a couple questions, but one of the things I want to go into is your worldview. Now, you did mention that you're a Christian, and were you always? And if you were not, what were you before, and how did you become a Christian now?
Okay, well, I was raised in a Christian home, but I had no profession of faith or anything. You just go because you have to. You go to church like a good boy. And it was, you know, so I knew how to play that
role,
yeah, you know, just get up, you go to church. We really started off Seventh-day Adventist, so it was more of a Saturday thing, and, you know, all these different restrictions and rules, and I didn't even understand any of them. We just follow along because you have to. And then in my teen years, it turned into, like, I think we started going to Haitian Church of God, and that was more, I would say, charismatic.
Okay.
So I used to call it the Clapping Hand Church. And I was like, okay, there's a drum set over there, you know, that's weird, you know, and it was cool, you know, so and we got involved with that, and then, but still no profession of faith at all. I was just there. I was a teenager then. Yeah. So I'm just there to hang out, socialize, and everything, you know. But I always knew that, you know, I always believed that God exists, you know, like these are things that I mean, and no one was ever able to take that away from me. My understanding of who God was different. So, so I'm going to the Haitian Church of God, which was more lively. And again, for me, it was just a hangout spot. But I mean, I always believed that God existed. I didn't understand who he was. I didn't see him as king. I just saw him as this controller of everything, just be on his good side, And yeah, so when did the change occur? I would say I was about maybe, 18 or 19. But that, for me, it wasn't a rapid conversion. I would say it was a slow boil, or like a couple of years.
Okay.
So so God began to soften my heart more, so to the point where I wasn't acting anymore, because I was really good at playing it off.
Yeah.
You couldn't tell me I wasn't a Christian.
And how long has the softening period been? So from when to when did...
I would say about a good... I would say it's... I would say about a good 10 years almost.
Okay.
I would say in 2013 was when... we had stopped going to church, my wife and I. We stopped going for a good 4 years.
Wow.
4 years because we just...
You were acting at that point. You were saying,
yeah,
playing
and
the
then
role.
I said, let's just stop going. And we stopped going.
Okay.
And we started watching like televangelists on television. I was like, see, this is just as good, right? Yeah. And then they're like, no. But, we didn't want to go back to where we left.
You said you were at that Pentecostal or the Haitian church?
Oh, no.
God?
I'm sorry. I'm fast forwarding. Then there was, we used to go to Oneness Pentecostal Tabernacle. And, it was cool. I mean, a lot of godly people there, but there was no heart change. I guess I was still in that process, or maybe even then I wasn't saved then as well.
Yeah.
So, we just knew how to, I believe my wife was, but I wasn't. And I didn't want to, admit that or even see that it was a problem. So I just tried to continue being good.
Gotcha.
You go to the altar, you cry and everything, and you promise God that you'll be good. Yeah, so I would say around like 2012, 2013 was when I started to, was when I met it. I listened to a podcast, and my wife says, what are you doing? And then I said, I just listened to this guy, and, I want to call him up. His name was Nathan Kreitz. And I called up because his number was at the end of the podcast.
Yeah.
And I called him up because I was really arrogant, man. And I was going to call him and tell him, like, you guys aren't talking about this or this or this or that.
Man.
And he was just, keep in mind, I hadn't been going to church for 4 years. And I'm going to call this guy who preached an amazing sermon and tell him what, And he picked up the phone, and he was just so, like, cool and gracious and everything. And I was like, dude, we're supposed to be fighting, but I like you so much, And then he invited me to Bible studies out in Ridgewood, and I would go on my motorcycle, and then, but I was like ready to bounce if anything felt funny, as if I knew what funny was. And, but I felt God like softening my heart, because they spoke, I guess it was much more of conviction, I believed that I sinned, but I didn't believe I was a sinner before God. Okay, so
that's big.
And so he invited me to a church in Bayside, North Shore Baptist Church, and when I went in there, I used to call it Hypocrite Sunday. I said, "Oh, this is when everyone shows up." Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Let's see all the hypocrites who show up, and then here I go. I walk in with my two boys, It was a recon mission, actually. I go in with my two boys, and they dismiss the kids downstairs. I'm like, where are you taking them? Downstairs to children's church. I'm like, all right. I said, kids, because I was ready to run in and get them. And he preached a sermon about, I think it was called, You Can't Win Them All. And just how they just how he communicated the gospel. And I was like, I am a sinner. I'm like, I am a sinner. Oh, and then it was that fear of that you've offended a holy God.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
And that, and that Jesus did what you couldn't do. And I was like, and I believed I felt the javelin in my chest. And I was like, I need more of this. Because, again, I didn't have to be hooping and hollering. You can be excited for God and everything, but I was sitting there. I felt like I was the only guy in the room, and I was like, oh, man, Lord, save me,
That's, yeah. I feel like it's really important. So, and I tell anyone this who's exploring religion, not even just Christianity. And I start there because I say, out of all the religions you're going to check out, research, do due diligence on, when you get to Christianity, which is, I tell people, this is what I believe, make sure you go to the right church. Yeah. Reach out to me. I will help you find the right church. Because if you go to, let's say, one of the churches before you mentioned Seventh-day Adventist, Haitian Church of God, or any church, and I don't want to single out these, I will single out Seventh-day Adventists, but that's for another conversation. There are denominations where, and I wouldn't even single out denominations, they're just churches in general where the gospel isn't being preached, right? And that conviction you had when you went to North Shore, that doesn't happen every time you go to, that doesn't happen often, unfortunately, because I was experiencing a time when I was looking for a church, and just a drought, really of a drought season, just trying to find the right church. So I do suggest people, hey, make sure you're finding the right one to go to. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of what you experienced was because you were going to churches where maybe at the pulpit the best things weren't being preached. Yeah. I'm going to go into the last transition, which is a little bit fun for me. So they're kind of like quick questions. Mm-hmm. The first question is, if you can have one message on the homepage of Google, the search bar, and one message that pops up right under there, what message would that be?
You mean like my message to people?
The whole world. The whole world. As soon as you type in google.com, you see that search bar. If you could just have a message that you can just share with the whole world, what would that be?
Use kind words.
Nice.
It's so simple, but it's so hard to do sometimes, Yeah. It's just use kind words, because it can scar people, like I think about my childhood. I said things that were said to me by people who I cared about. I'm like, but yeah, and we tell that to our kids a lot too. Just use kind words, Sometimes you might not mean it. And I get that, I get it, but it goes a long way.
It does.
It really does. Just be kind.
I like that. I like that a lot. The second one is not a question, but 10 years from now, let's say your kids are watching this. What would you want to tell them?
Hey! So, what would I want to tell them? Well, that's heavy, because now I'm like, I can't see 10 seconds from now, Be better than me. We're open enough with you guys to show you or to share our struggles with you. You're going to make your own mistakes. Just don't copy mine, Yeah.
Ben, thank you for being so kind as to sharing your time, opening up your home like this. I had such a good time with this interview, with this conversation, man. I hope you did too.
I did too, yeah.
What a pleasure. Thanks again, brother.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining me on this episode of Conversations with Caleb Lee. Don't forget to check out my website at gcaleblee.com. That's GCALEBLEE.com to watch some of the videos of the exact interviews you just listened to. Also, don't forget to subscribe if you've enjoyed this episode and this show series. Lastly, I want to invite any listeners to join me to be a guest on my show. Whether over Skype or in person, I'd be glad to accommodate for what works best for you. If you'd like to join me, reach out to me on my contact page on my website, or you can find me on Twitter at gcaleblee. You know what? Even if you don't want to be a part of the podcast, I would still love to hear your feedback. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll join you on the next episode of Conversations with Caleb Lee.